Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about how to grow your business. And I don't mean grow as in like, another 10 clients, another 1,000 clients. We're going to be talking about how to exponentially grow your business. So you got to be prepared to do that. You know, this is something that takes obviously a lot of thought. And for many people, they don't want to do it. And that's perfectly fine. But for others, they want to grow. And so we're going to be talking with the wonderful David B. Horne today about how to do that. So welcome, David. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Deb. I'm fine. Really delighted to be on the show with you.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell folks a little bit more about you, and then we'll jump in. So David B. Horne is the founder of Add Then Multiply, a consultancy working exclusively with business founders who want to grow fast. David trained as a CPA with PwC, and his career includes being CFO of 2 companies listed on the London Stock Exchange. During his career, he has raised over $150 million in funding and bought or sold 28 companies. He is the author of the Amazon #1 best-selling, there it is, Vanna, show it off, Add Then Multiply, How Small Businesses Can Think Like Big Businesses and Achieve Exponential Growth, which won the Business Self-Development category at the Business Book Awards in 2020. He also, his second book, wait, bring it back, is Funded Female Founders, and it was published in June 2022. It is also an Amazon bestseller. He is the founder, he's a busy man here. He is the founder of Funding Focus, a social enterprise whose mission is to level the uneven playing field that female and underrepresented entrepreneurs of all genders face when raising capital. Finally, his TED Talk, The Fight for Fairer Funding, has over 3 million views. Whew, got me tired just going through that. So again, David, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, I always like to know how my guests got to where they are today, because you've had quite the career and life path. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Was born there and grew up in and around that area. Met my wife when we were 17. I was at university. She was finishing high school or had just finished high school. And we got married 4 years later. I started working, training with PwC back when it was Price Waterhouse before they merged with Coopers and Lybrand, so a long time ago, and qualified with them. And then I'm a fluent German speaker, and I asked to go and speak live in a German-speaking city with them. And one day I came into the office, and there was a message to contact the Zurich office, and they gave us an incredible job offer. And so in the summer of 1987, my wife and I packed up. We sold off what few possessions we had. We packed our clothes into 4 suitcases, got on board an airplane with one-way tickets and a 2-year employment contract. And that was 37 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So we ended up staying in Switzerland for 6 years, 2 years with PwC, and then 4 years with the Swiss subsidiary of NCR, the computer company.
Okay.
And then moved with NCR to London in 1993. My wife's originally from the UK. Her family had emigrated to Canada when she was 3. So, and my dad was born here. So we both had dual citizenship. And so we were able to come and live and work in the UK. Our daughters were actually born in Switzerland, but were very young when they moved here. So we've been in London since 1993. And I spent the next 6 years working with big blue chip corporates. I was with NCR, which then got taken over by AT&T. I was with them for a few years. And then I was with the BBC for a few years. And then I thought, okay, I've had enough of this really big company stuff. I'm going to get a job at the .com,
Mhm.
end of 1999. Thankfully, I didn't, because of course the whole .com thing
Yeah.
soon
Poof.
collapsed.
Mhm.
But I ended up with a very acquisitive PR agency group that had just expanded into Europe. They had
Mhm.
bought 2 agencies in Germany, and they were having a terrible time getting any information out of these new German businesses. And lo and behold, I was looking for a job, and I speak fluent German,
Mhm.
and so I ended up becoming the CFO of the European operations of this business. Got the German thing sorted out, and over the next 2 years, we bought 7 PR agencies.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth on the
Mhm.
whole M&A side of things. And then our parent company got bought out by Interpublic Group, which is one of the big giants of
Mhm.
the advertising and communications world. And we got merged into their PR business called Weber Shandwick, and they were
Mhm.
probably 100 times our size in Europe. So
Mhm.
my job was no longer, my services were no longer necessary, and I was given a check and shown the door. And hey, that's
It's
life.
not bad. Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
not
Especially
bad.
when you're
It's
given the
not bad.
check. Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah, and the checks on this side of the Atlantic are usually a little more
Mhm.
generous than the
Mhm.
checks on that side of the Atlantic. So, but anyway, and then I got introduced through a one of my co-directors in the PR agency. I got introduced to a man who had grown a business from the UK's FTSE 250 into the
Mhm.
FTSE 100. So
Mhm.
the big companies, big
Mhm.
listed companies,
Mhm.
he'd grown them from kind of the second tier exchange of the exchange
Wow.
into the
Okay.
top tier.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
he'd done very, very well. And then he
Mhm.
had retired from that role
Mhm.
and decided to set something up brand
Mhm.
new on his own, literally what's called a
Mhm.
cash shell. As
Mhm.
as John and I like to say, we did a SPAC before SPACs were popular.
Ah. Mhm.
So we had this business that had £3 million in cash, about
Mhm.
$5 million in cash, and nothing else.
Mhm.
And we went on a spending spree and bought a bunch of publishing businesses.
Mhm.
And over the 3 year period, we bought 7 privately held publishing
Mhm.
companies and took over an 8th one that had also been listed on the stock exchange.
Mhm.
So I've done both public and private
Okay.
acquisitions. And we grew at the end of the first year, our revenue was 1.1 million.
Mhm.
By the end of the third year, our revenue was 27 million. So
Wow.
we tripled it, and then we
Mhm.
tripled it again, and then we
Mhm.
tripled it again.
Mhm.
And that was an amazing experience,
Mhm.
and where I really got
Mhm.
into the nuts and bolts of doing
Mhm.
the deals and putting the businesses together
Mhm.
and all of the management
Mhm.
around that. And then I got headhunted to join another listed company,
Mhm.
and I worked with them, and we got wind in the spring of 2008 that our largest global
Mhm.
competitor was up for sale.
Ooh.
This was an auction business now,
Mhm.
and they were headquartered in LA,
Mhm.
very big in the United States. It was a
Mhm.
company at the time called DoveBid, and we acquired them. We raised 28 million pounds, which is
Mhm.
about $50 million.
Mhm.
Went out and bought them, and did a global
Mhm.
integration, and came back to the markets and said, "We've done everything we set out in
Mhm.
the prospectus. Everything's good.
Mhm.
We're on track, and we're looking forward to the final
Mhm.
quarter of the year." And then Lehman Brothers went bust.
Oh.
And £6 million, or about $10 million
Mhm.
of revenue that was expected in the
Mhm.
fourth quarter, never came.
Right.
And when you've just done a huge global integration of 2 companies,
Mhm.
the cost base is pretty fixed. And so 6
Right.
million doesn't hit the
Mhm.
top, falls all the way to the bottom.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
That's
so
painful.
it was
Mhm.
very painful. It was very painful. 6 months and 4 profit warnings later, the chief exec got fired. It wasn't his fault, but somebody had to
Mhm.
go.
Mhm.
And the board brought in a new guy, and he and I were what the Brits refer to as being like chalk and cheese. We did not get
You
on
did not mix
at
oil
all.
and water. Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I stuck around for a year to make sure the company was on a sound footing. I felt,
Mhm.
a responsibility to my team and
Mhm.
to the broader company, even if I didn't like the chief executive. And then I left. And I had what I called my midlife crisis. I decided to launch a wine business, which was great
Ah.
fun.
Mhm.
Wonderful product, wonderful people,
Mhm.
and probably the worst economics of any industry I've ever come across.
Mhm.
And the best example of the old adage, how do you make a small fortune in the wine business? Start with a big one.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. You
So,
start with
so
big and it
anyway,
goes boop.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, after 2 years, I finally came to my senses, and I still have the wine business today. It's a hobby. I'm its biggest customer by some measure.
I love it.
But no, so since 2012, I have worked exclusively with founders,
Hmm.
doing various ranges of financial consulting, and
Hmm.
as the years have progressed and the books have come out, I've
Hmm.
really specialized
Hmm.
and focused on the kind of work
Hmm.
that I do. But I work exclusively, and since the last 12
Hmm.
years, I work exclusively with founders of businesses.
I love it. And oh, so many things to talk about, so many things. Like I said at the start, some businesses, they don't want to grow like that, or they want to grow intrinsically, internally.
Mhm.
That's perfectly fine.
Absolutely fine.
But yeah, if you really want to grow, it typically has to come through buying other companies or merging with them, in some degree.
Or
But
being very lucky.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you hit something, but it is pretty unusual that you're going to do that. And, so there's just so much to that. It's, but it's obviously a big challenge, which is why so many people don't do it. It seems scary. I mean, you're talking millions.
Yeah.
Sometimes we could be talking thousands, and that's still scary, right?
Yeah.
And because there's so many things with that. But you one of the things that you have created, and we love acronyms, right? You worked for all those acronyms, all these various
Absolutely.
things. So you started the face model. Tell us
I
about
did.
that, because that's going to lead
Please.
us into
Yep.
everything else.
Absolutely. So the FACE model or methodology is set out in my book, Add Then
Hmm.
Multiply, and it stands for fund, acquire, consolidate, and exit.
Hmm.
So in layman terms, raise some money,
Hmm.
then buy some things,
Hmm.
typically other companies, then put them all together,
Yep.
and then sell it, and
Hmm.
then decide what's the next stage in your
Right.
life.
Right. And it's and obviously your book goes into great detail about all of this, and one of the biggest things, folks, you can't do this by yourself. You have to have a good team, and you have to have people who are very knowledgeable about this process.
Yeah.
Even if you're just buying, the little local business around the corner, there's a lot of things that you need to know. But I found it so interesting because, oh gosh, it's been quite a while ago, but I used to work for one of the big guys. I worked for ING Group.
Okay.
And when I was there at that point, they were the seventh largest corporation in the world.
Wow.
And I had a nonprofit background, so this was just like baffling to me. But I was there during a period of M&As with them, and I was the head of corporate communications for one of their life areas, which was one of their big things. And it was just such an interesting, scary, all sorts of different things. And I think from my perspective, from the communications person, one of the hardest things was we couldn't always talk about what was going on because
Correct.
of
Yep.
publicly traded companies.
Yep.
And so the employees are like, do I have a job tomorrow? And we couldn't tell them.
Yep.
And now we really did strive to let people know as soon as possible. So, for example,
Sure.
like when we bought one of the other companies, I was up like at 2 o'clock in the morning because for those who don't know, ING is based in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And so, very different time zones than here in the US. And so we said, okay, here is the acquisition. It is final as of X time. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning here in the States,
Mhm.
but we sent an email to every single employee
Yep.
at 2:01.
Perfect. Wonderful.
And
That shows you were a good employer.
right. Well, and did they read it? No. I mean,
No,
not
but
until the
but
morning.
you sent it.
Yes, and more importantly, they didn't, some of them obviously did hear about it on the news and things like that before they read their emails. But we tried to be as transparent as possible. And I think that's one of the challenges with this process is how do you do that? So what are some other tips that you have?
Well, I mean, the big challenge, and we faced this with the two companies where we were listed on the stock exchange, is when you have what is deemed to be price sensitive
Mm-hmm.
information,
Mm-hmm.
there are
Yes,
very
so you're going to
strict
make the
rules.
stock price go up or go down.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so there are very, very strict rules around the
Mm-hmm.
communication, and you have to deal with that. I None of my clients currently are public companies, although I am in discussions with a couple of them who are considering doing an IPO at some point in the future. But right now I'm working exclusively with privately held companies. So the rules around that are a little less strict. But I think it's also important to keep the communication tightly controlled, because you don't want just wild rumors all of a sudden out in the marketplace. And again, the way I've always done the work, and kind of shameless plug here, but what differentiates me from, say, a corporate finance advisory firm or something is I've actually been the guy inside the companies doing the transactions, as opposed to, hi, I'm David, and I tell people how to do things.
Yes.
And so I've got that very much that firsthand experience.
Right. You understand the emotions.
I mean, one of the companies we bought, and this was when it was a public company, and it was in the prospectus, and it said, it was a very successful business, but it had an operation in Brussels that was bleeding money. And we said that we intended to take immediate corrective action. Well, the morning after that deal completed, I was on the train to Brussels. When I arrived at the office, there were 13 staff. When I left that evening, there were 2.
Oh, you bled.
Yeah. And then I think I had 3 gin and tonics on the train coming home.
Yeah, because that's not fun. I mean,
it's not. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work. But it's interesting, because I remember sitting down with the 2 that were left at the end, and I remember saying to them, I've been in your shoes before, where there's been a big redundancy program and I've been someone left. I've been in your former colleagues' shoes before, where I've been made redundant and have had to leave my job on the same day, kind of banker's balk, pack up, off you go. And I've been in the role I'm in right now before, where I've had to do this. So I understand how each of the parties might be feeling at any one point in time. And we ended up talking for like half an hour and just kind of connecting on a human level, which I think helped all of us. Because it's not a pleasant thing to go through.
No.
I've had to let go more people than I care to remember.
Right.
But it's part of the job.
Yeah.
It's part of the job.
Yeah. I remember, one time when, now we were in a big building, and so 17 stories. So when you get in the elevator for a while, now, that also happened to be the same company that my husband worked for. So I knew a lot of the employees a lot longer than I had actually worked there. And so I get in the elevator. Now I know what's happening, right? Because I've been working on the communications, and it's a couple who are married, who I'd known for many years. And they're telling me all about they're getting ready to get pregnant and they're getting ready to buy a new house. And I knew that both of them were going to be unemployed pretty quickly. And obviously you got to have a poker face, right? And I'm like, my floor, this is my floor. And they came back later and they said, why didn't you tell us? I said, I couldn't, because even if you had not said a word, you might have not bought the house. And then the other people that you worked with would have said, well, wait, it was not fun, and it was not easy.
There's that circle of closed trust. And as soon as one person outside knows you've lost control.
Right. And so, it's definitely a challenge. And of course, the bad part is we all know, is that when there's a vacuum, people make stuff up, good and bad. And so that's always the trick. But let's go back. We kind of leaped ahead here. So let's go back to the F, the fun.
Yes.
So I love the story in your book, in both of your books, actually, about the very first time you got a loan. So tell us a little bit more about that. I thought that was a delightful story.
Yeah, sure. So I was, it was the summer of 1976. So I would have turned 14 that year. And I had recently gotten into coin collecting. My grandfather had been a coin collector, my mom's dad. And my grandmother decided, I think when I was 12 or 13, that I was old enough to deserve my grandfather's coin collection, because he'd passed away a few years ago.
So you weren't going to spend it. That was the key.
Exactly. So I got the coin collection and I built it up and I, put it into nice albums and all that kind of stuff, and started doing my own collecting. And then it was the summer of the 1976 Olympics, which were held in Montreal. And the Royal Canadian Mint came out with a commemorative coin set. And it was $300. And I had about $100 saved up. But I remember sitting at home just kind of going, oh, I really want this coin set, but it's $300 and I've only got 100. And my dad said, well, let's go to the bank and get you a loan. So we went downtown back in the days when banks had bank managers.
And you knew them by name.
Exactly. And we went in and my dad sat down and introduced me to his bank manager. And I told him, this is what I wanted to buy. And I'd saved up $100 and I was delivering newspapers. So I was making an income and I knew I could repay the loan. And out came the forms and we filled them all out. And of course, the important thing was my dad countersigned the agreement. So the bank knew it was safe. And presto, there's $200 in my bank account plus the 100 that was there. And I went out and bought the coin collection.
I love it.
And I remember my dad, when we were walking back to the car, and my dad put his hand on my shoulder and he said, now, David, remember, what you borrow, you must pay back. And that stood with me all my life. Such simple words, but such sage advice, that works out in ways that, even when times were difficult, if I owed someone money, I paid them when I owed them. I always pay off my credit cards in full every month. Sometimes when things were tight, I'd sneak a cash advance on one of the other credit cards.
Yeah, you do a little robbing of Peter to pay Paul, but
credit card juggling game. But but no, I mean, I've always been someone like that. I've never been afraid of taking on debt if it was to buy an asset.
Right.
What I would never do is take on debt to pay for my living expenses.
Right. Well, and what I love about this story is, there's so many different, like, your parents could have just given you the money. That wouldn't have taught you very much.
Nope.
They could have loaned you the money and you may or may not have paid it back. I mean, but by doing it through a bank, you knew you had that commitment. Now, if something had happened, your dad was going to take care of it, but that would have been probably absolutely mortifying to you to have to ask him. I mean, that was the biggie. But
because that was one of those moments where the parent-child relationship came a little bit
you
closer.
got a little bit, right. And so, but like you said, you learned very early on about the importance of borrowing and lending.
I did.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues that we see with both personal and business finances now, right? The juggling of the credit cards, all of those various things. And, in your book, you talk about the fact that that when you're going to do all of this, you have to have that firm financial base. Now, are there some juggling of monies? Well, yeah, probably a little bit. But if you take out a loan for $200, 200,000, 200 million, you have got to pay that off.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think one of the things that makes me sad is that a lot of times people just go, nah, we don't, we're going to declare bankruptcy. We're going to do whatever. And things happen, stock market crashes, COVID, all of those things. But a big part of it is you absolutely have to have planned. And that is your basis for everything, is you have to plan how you're going to do this and do this in a very smart, intelligent way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and you talk about, there's obviously lots of different ways to fund businesses. So kind of go through, the
different
30,000 view of.
Absolutely. So we've talked about debt already. So debt is borrowing money, and that's from a bank or increasingly from fintechs. If you're a business that transacts a lot of money online with someone like Stripe or PayPal, once you build up a track record, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, we'll lend you money, because they can see the flow of cash.
I get all of these emails every day and I'm like, I don't think so.
No, exactly. So that's debt, where someone pays you money and you pay them back. And the other side,
and you've got
equity.
Interest usually. So
you've got to pay interest and read the details very carefully, because you might pay your bank 10% interest, and then you look at some of these fintechs and you might pay them 40% interest. And then you might take out a store card, and when you go into default, all of a sudden it's 120% interest.
I know.
That starts, and then that kind of racks up almost into loan sharking. Which nobody should go for, but the rates can go up very quickly. So just be wary of that. Then the other side is equity, which is where you sell a stake in your company. You buy shares. It's just like it's exactly the same if you wanted to buy shares in in Apple or
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft or Nvidia or whoever, except instead of buying them on the stock
Mm-hmm.
market, you buy them privately from
Right.
whoever holds the
Right.
company.
But
And
David, I don't want to give up part of my company.
yeah, well, then don't take on equity funding. If you want to take on serious amounts of funding,
Mm-hmm.
equity is the way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole thing here, and I love the way you said that, because so many people say, I hate having to give away equity. But you're not giving away equity,
Right.
you're selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to people, when you're going into these kinds of conversations, think of it just like you're going into conversation with a customer, where
Mm-hmm.
instead of your product being whatever it is that your
Mm-hmm.
company does, your product is your company.
Mm-hmm.
But you're selling something to people. You're
Mm-hmm.
not giving it away.
Right. Right. And and you talk in your book about how to do your proposals,
Yep.
because you can't just go in and say, "Hey, David, I got this cool plan. I think you need to fund it." No,
Definitely not.
and it is about having all those ducks in a row. It's funny. My husband and I were asked several years ago to invest in a friend's business. And it had been a business that had been, around for at least 10 years, seemed pretty successful. They were ready to grow, right? And so they were wanting outside investors. And so I said, sure, we'd be willing to consider it. And they said, okay, we need X number of dollars. And that was it. And I said, oh, no. I need to see your business plan. I need to see your books. I need to see this, and this.
Yep.
And they said, well, no, we want you to be a silent partner. And I said, well, even if I was a silent partner, I would still want to know that my money was being well invested, right?
Exactly.
If you're going to buy a stock, you want to know what what its performance has been, all of those various things. And of course, they wouldn't part with any of it.
Okay.
And so we didn't part with our money, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's if I'm wanting somebody to invest in my company, to buy equity in it, then I had better be able to show them why it's a good investment.
Absolutely, 100%. You've got to have a pitch deck, which sets out the business. And in my second book, Funded Female Founders, I actually set out, here are the 12 slides that you need. But it's like a cover slide. It's the elevator pitch. It's the problem. It's the solution. It's the traction. It's the market size. It's your unique selling point. It's financial projections. It's here's the exit plan. Here's what we're going to use the money for. Right. And thanks very much. Here's how to get in touch.
Right. And you better be able to tell me what I'm going to get.
Yes.
And because I need to have made money. I mean, it's not just, hey, I'm going to give you $30,000. I need to get back 35,000 or whatever,
or more, a lot more.
Right.
I mean, especially if it's an especially if it's an early stage investment. Let's say, for argument's sake, your friend's business was worth $500,000, and you put in 50,000, so you'd have 10% of the company.
Right. Then I'd better get 10%.
And so if your friend, if she sells the company in 5 years for 5 million, you get $500,000 back. So you've made a 10x return.
Yes. Yeah. And that needs spelled out. And again, folks, this is why we say you have to have outside help, legal help, right? Get your ducks in a row, because it covers everybody. Because you talk in your book about the fact that what happens if there's an issue. What if you're not able to pay? Maybe your agreement was, okay, you're going to make them payments every quarter, something like that, and you miss that. Well, then all of a sudden you owe a lot more money, or they could buy your company have your company.
But you got to be careful, because if you're talking about equity investments, that's not the case, because in the equity investment, I've bought shares.
Okay.
So if I own debt, if I've lent you money, if you're unable to pay, there are cases in which I can go in and basically wipe out your shareholders. But for the most part, as long as the business is continues as a going concern, then the equity shareholders don't have any rights to money back unless the company pays a dividend, or if there's some form of a liquidity event, like a new, maybe a private equity house comes along and wants to buy out the minority investors.
Right. And it is tricky. And a lot of companies, they're not going to make money to start with. And that comes back to that whole communications thing, right? And your investors, and what you're wanting is to keep them happy so they're not selling. That's because who knows who they might sell to.
And again, and that's part of the deal, and it's very common in early stage companies to have what's called a shareholders agreement that sets rules on the ability.
Right. Yeah, you cannot sell to my competitors, or
exactly,
or the only choice is sell back to me,
or sell to the company.
Right. Yeah. And things like that. But then there's venture capital, there's angels. What are all of those? Because we hear about those, right? Those are they sound cool and sexy.
There's a flow. So the first round, once you've got past kind of the bootstrapping stage, which is when you
use your own credit cards,
use your own credit card plus whatever you can sell to generate revenue and cash coming in. Then you've got what's called friends and family. So that's mom and dad. You might have a rich aunt and uncle, your friends from school. One of them did well. Or inherited some money or whatever, and they put in a bit of money. And that's a very common way for a lot of very successful founders to start. I mean, Richard Branson borrowed $5,000 from his parents. So, a very tried and tested route. So that's friends and family. Then up one level from that is what's called angel investing. And now angel investors are typically founders of companies or early stage investors in companies who have had an exit event already. And they don't necessarily want to go and start up again,
right?
But they'd love to work with and support young entrepreneurs because they love the journey.
Right. They don't want to be the boss anymore.
No.
They want to,
but they bring their experience, they bring their little black book, they bring their cash, they bring their wisdom and guidance, and they can support at the very early stage. Then you get into what's called institutional investors. And this is where the people who are managing the money, it's not necessarily their money. They may have got money from a university endowment fund or a pension fund or an insurance company, and they'll have gone and pitched to them and said, here's our investment thesis. We're going to invest in this type of company. These are the kinds of returns we've had. This is our track record of what we've done before. Please give us your money and we'll invest it on your behalf.
Right. And we'll make everything grow.
Exactly. And you got two main, you got kind of three parts. You've got venture capital, you've got private equity, and you've got family offices. And they're all typically institutional because they're managing other people. So there's professional managers managing someone else's money. So venture capital is investing in very early stage companies. In terms of the terminology, they'll invest in pre-seed, seed, Series A kind of rounds. Private equity then comes in a little later, Series A, Series B.
You're ready to grow.
Exactly. And so typically venture capital is in a very early startup phase. And it's a much higher risk, but therefore they're looking at higher returns. Private equity, one of private equity's favorite things to do is a roll-up. So let's say you're an IT service provider business, and you go out and convince a private equity firm that you're the right guy to consolidate this industry. And over the next 5 years, you're going to go out and you're going to buy 25 IT service businesses and consolidate them into a nationwide thing, with presence in, let's say 47 states. Maybe they haven't quite reached Alaska and Hawaii yet and one other. But, certainly
Wyoming. We'll just count Wyoming out.
Exactly. There you go. Sorry, Wyoming. And they'll fund you to do that. And then beyond, the next one is a family office. Now, typically a family office is the money of one or more very wealthy families, and we're talking like Rockefellers and those kinds of people. So, family offices have a lot of money under management. And the whole point for the first two, the venture capital and private equity, is they're seeking a return in kind of 5 to 7, maybe 10 years, but their investors want their money back. For the family offices, the manager's primary mandate is to preserve the wealth for the next generation and beyond that. So they have much, much longer time horizons, and are really looking for security as well as a good return.
Right.
But those are the different types of funding that are primarily available. And then for a business that's more established, you can go onto public markets.
Right.
So, in the US, you've got NASDAQ, you've got the New York Stock Exchange, you've got the the OTC markets for very early stage companies. In the UK, you've got the main market of the stock exchange, and you've got the junior market, which is called AIM, the alternative investment market, and similar things on stock markets around the world.
Right, right. And so you've got your money. You've got this big bank account. Ooh, yay. And so you're doing stuff with your own business. But then that brings us to the A. So fund acquire.
Yep.
You can start new things. You can continue doing what you've been doing, but it's easier and faster to buy somebody else.
Correct.
And so kind of walk us through a little bit of that process.
Sure. So let's use the same example as the IT services company. So it's an IT services company, and they're based in Baltimore. And so they decide, they can service DC, but New York City is a little bit too far to get to in a day. So they find an IT firm based in Manhattan, and they buy them.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they've got 2 centers and anything that's in between, so all of a sudden they can cover all of New Jersey and really anything that's in the New York to Washington zone, because they've got service trucks and all of that's available. And then they think, okay, now we're going to go up to Boston and we're going to buy someone in Boston. And all of a sudden we're building something, and we might have bought a couple of old family businesses. So now we decide to rebrand them into, East Coast IT superstores, or whatever you want to call them. And then they'll go down to Atlanta and they'll pick something up in Atlanta, and on the way they'll pick something up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and wherever else. And that's literally a geographic expansion.
Right.
The other kind of thing that you could do is you could say, well, we're an IT services business, but we don't have any development. So we're going to look for a development shop that we can buy. And all of a sudden we can have our IT services, but we can also write code for clients. And I know one story of a guy who's written a book about it. He was a Swiss software developer. He started a company in 2000 in Geneva, and they did front-end software for private banks. And as you can imagine, there are a few private banks in Geneva.
Just one or two.
Just one or two. So built up a fabulous business, which then almost died in the global financial crash, brought it right back to zero. And then as they were coming out of the crash, they became aware. So they did front-end software. They became aware of a Swiss company that did back-end software that was going bust. So they bought them, merged the two together, had a complete end-to-end solution, went out to the private banks. The business took off. This guy sold 77% of his company in about 2015.
Wow.
For around $25 million. And he stayed with the company and oversaw an acquisition strategy. And 4 years later, sold the remaining 23% of his company for 3 times what he had sold the 77%.
Wow. And he now owns an island somewhere.
Well, yeah, he's worth 9 figures.
Right. And then there's sometimes it's acquiring a support type of thing. When I was at ING, one of the funny things that we did, we were making some pretty major changes, and so we were totally redesigning our websites. We hired an outside firm. I don't know why we didn't do it internally, but we hired an outside firm. But we were just one of their clients, right? Now, we were pretty good size. I mean, we were probably one of their bigger clients, but there were times where people would say, hey, we need this done. And they'd say, we have another project. I mean, they'd say it very politely, right? But we were not the top dog. So we bought them. Then we were their only client, right? Same thing with a printing company. We did a lot of business with a company where we, printed. This was, long enough ago that you still had lots of printed brochures and things.
Absolutely.
So we just bought the printing company.
And all that kind of stuff. Sure.
Yeah. And so that takes us into the consolidate part of FACE.
Correct. Very
because
much.
Now you've got all these little PC parts that now you might choose, I mean, depending on what your strategy was, that they're still all going to be independent. That's pretty difficult to manage. More than likely, you were doing it to make, to put them all under your umbrella. We had to manage the printing company. We had to manage the website folks, and so the consolidation part is often, one of the biggest challenges.
It's the one where, yeah, as I say, it's where the rubber meets the road.
Right,
It really
right.
is.
I mean, you talk
And
in
it,
your book about merging cultures or changing cultures.
yeah. And it's interesting because my first exposure to M&A
Mm-hmm.
was when I was working for NCR in Switzerland, and
Mm-hmm.
AT&T bought
Mm-hmm.
NCR.
Mm-hmm.
And AT&T had, this was like 1990 or
Mm-hmm.
1991. And AT&T had poured billions into trying to develop computers, and they were all a disaster. And so
Mm-hmm.
they went out and bought NCR.
Yeah, we still want to
And
do this, so we'll just buy it.
exactly. And NCR had a very command and control and
Mm-hmm.
very hierarchical structure,
Mm-hmm.
and climbing the greasy
Mm-hmm.
pole and all that. And AT&T was wide open, and we loved and trusted everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, some of the shenanigans that were got up to. I mean, I'm not under NDA, but I'm not sure that I should tell
Yeah,
over
we
the
just don't need to
table.
talk. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and just the two cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and things just got horribly out of
Mm-hmm.
control. And I mean, for people who've been following M&A transactions for many years,
Mm-hmm.
for anyone who's been around since the 90s, in terms of destruction of value, AT&T's
Mm-hmm.
acquisition of NCR was considered
Mm-hmm.
the worst deal until some of the
Right.
dot-com,
Mm-hmm. Right.
like AOL, Time Warner, and things like that.
Yeah. And that's part of this is it has to make sense
Yeah.
who you're buying or
Yeah.
acquiring or merging with, or whatever that little piecey part is. It's not just, oh, that looks good. Now, when
Exactly.
you're the size of Amazon, maybe, but they still, what they acquire still makes sense in their business model.
Sure.
Now, it's expanded obviously from, the garage, but
Absolutely.
it all makes sense. They're not going to all of a sudden go off in a totally different direction just because, as you put it, in the book, it was a good deal. No, good deals are
I
not
mean,
usually good deals.
no, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And if we go back to the example of the Baltimore IT
Mm-hmm.
company that's bought in New York and they've bought in
Mm-hmm.
Boston, um, they they have their finance department head
Mm-hmm.
office in Baltimore, and so they might need a bookkeeper in Boston, and they might
Mm-hmm.
need a bookkeeper in New
Mm-hmm.
York, but quite frankly, with systems these days, they
Mm-hmm.
probably don't.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
so they're going to save that cost. There might be a particular manufacturer that they
Mm-hmm.
service that has a very exclusive
Mm-hmm.
relationship with a particular piece of technology. So I'm not talking about Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
or Apple, but something that's really a
Right.
very
Mm-hmm.
particular sector.
Mm-hmm.
I did some work with a security company a few years ago, and there were a few security brands that were really hard to
Mm-hmm.
become authorized representatives
Right.
of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the New York one had that. So
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, New York can offer that service not
Mm-hmm.
just in New York, but also
Mm-hmm.
to Baltimore and to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got the East Coast best salesperson of the year for 7 years running out
Mm-hmm.
of your Boston office.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you learn from that person and teach
Mm-hmm.
your other salespeople to try and emulate some of those
Right.
things? So those are all positive developments.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you don't need
Right. You don't need full accounting, full HR.
exactly. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need three chief executives.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
you
we
know,
had co-CEOs for a while. That didn't
yep.
work.
No,
Did not work.
no, I agree.
Because if dad said no, then you went to mom, right? That was exactly what it was.
Family businesses, Deb, they're amongst the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often in family businesses, members of the family have all the power and the authority, and they've got a whole team of people, and their job is to say yes and do what they're
Mm-hmm.
told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And when mom and dad and the kids are out,
Mm-hmm.
nothing happens
No.
because nobody knows what to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And that's, and that's of course one of those things. If you're wanting to acquire a business that is a family run business, that gets really tricky. I mean, are you going to keep all those family members?
Exactly.
And all sorts of things. But yeah, the consolidation period, and it's not fast. I mean, that's the other thing.
No.
I think some people need to realize, especially I think the culture part. And we discovered that. I mean, it was one of those where we did things in a certain way with one, and they did it in a totally different way, and then it was let's try, and no.
Yes.
And of course the problem,
my advice would be, if you're doing anything that's going to lead to someone losing their job, do that quickly.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
your planning, get
Pull
ready,
that Band-Aid
and
off.
then bang.
Right.
I got on the train and went to Brussels and fired 11 people.
Right. Yeah.
on the next, literally that day.
Right.
So, get that done and then move on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people are kind of, oh my, my God, these people bought us 6 months ago. When's the axe going to fall?
Right. Yeah. We still have 3 HR departments. We don't need 3 HR departments.
Exactly.
And so then, of course, what happens is you lose your best people.
Correct.
Because they know something is going to happen and they would rather jump while the jumping is good.
And they're employable.
Yeah.
Very employable.
Yep. Yeah. it's much better to, even when you were part of a downsize and all those, that never sounds good, right? They would have kept you if they could have, and so, it's pull that Band-Aid off, and do that. But then, so you've consolidated and you're going merrily along. So the last is exit.
Yep.
Now, for some folks, this is what they do. They love doing this and then exiting. And then others, okay, they're not going to exit for a long time. But why do we need to plan for an exit?
Well,
or do we?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting. I had a phone call this morning from a guy I know who runs an IT services business. And he said, "Oh, we're looking at buying another company. Our accountant's done a valuation on them, and they came up with a price of X. And the seller is saying he wants 3 times the price of X.
Of course,
and
because it's his baby.
Exactly. Can we find someone independent to do a valuation? So, there's routes around that. But really, if you're going to get into a situation where there's going to be some kind of evaluation, you want to have prepared your company for sale.
Right.
You want to show that it's growing. You want to show that it's profitable. You want to show that you've got contracts in place with all of your customers, and with all of your key employees, and all of your employees and all of your key contractors, and all of that kind of stuff. Because if I buy your company and tomorrow you go off and spend 6 months on the shores of Barbados, and are not contactable,
hey,
and
you didn't take your cell phone.
Hang on a minute. Well, actually, none of the employees had contracts, and they've all left, and none of the contractors have.
And what do you mean Bob had the keys to the warehouse and Bob's gone?
Exactly. So you've got to prepare and do all of those things, and by doing that, you will increase the likelihood of being able to sell your company, and B, the price at which you can sell your company. Right. Because far too many people, I hear this all the time from other people who work in this space too. Far too many people, they'll come up and they'll say, "Oh, I've decided it's time to sell my business. I'd like to be out by Christmas."
Sure.
And okay.
I mean, you could.
You could, but we're talking fire sale prices and all this. And by the way, I think it's worth 100 gazillion.
Right. Because Grandpa founded this business.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And those people are in for a bit of a surprise. So it is again, you just got to view it as something you're doing. And again, coming back to when I said selling equity in your company is just like selling your product. It's just that your company is the product. Well, again, your company is the product, but this time it's the ownership of the whole thing.
Right. And it's one of those, as you're going through the process, I mean, you do have to, like you said, you have to realize what is what. I mean, one of the biggest things in many companies is your intellectual property, which is the people. And depending on what your business might be you, right? Nobody's going to want to buy that because then they don't have me. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that's where, okay, maybe I didn't want to sell. I wanted equity, things like that. And it's interesting. Yeah. Because the owners are always going to value it higher.
Absolutely.
Course, and
100%.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just whether it's been their baby or, they've been there for a year. They just think, okay, this is worth more. And, and they don't realize that, no, it's not. And that's where, again, you have to have the independent reviews.
A perfect example of that, Deb, in terms of getting the business ready. How many business owners, oh, well, I know I can put that through the business and the tax man will allow it. So we'll flow that one through. And, the second summer home needed some,
my 3 cars.
Maintenance and exactly. And the boat and all of that stuff flows through the company. Well, clean that out, get rid of it. make the new owners, if you're
Yes.
going to sell your company,
Mhm.
just take that stuff out,
Mhm.
take the hit personally,
Yeah.
because you'll increase the value of your
Yeah.
company.
I don't want them coming and getting my car.
And I don't want them to even have to hassle
Mhm.
with the problem of it,
Right.
or worry, well, what if the
Mhm.
IRS changes its mind
Right.
and now all of a sudden they're
Mhm.
going to come back and tax us?
Right. Right. And as I said at the start, this is a complicated process, which is why a lot of people don't do it. But it can be a way for you to grow your business by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
But we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I want to cover the one of the big things, and that is the fact that women have a much more difficult time with all of this. And so, it's, women just don't get funding for their efforts at the level that men do.
Correct.
And not just women, let's put it this way, anybody other than white men.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's kind of understandable, right? But like when I worked for ING, oh, you talk about a white man run company. That was just the way it was.
Yep.
But I love the fact that you now work with women. But why did you decide that this is something that is truly a passion for you?
So when my first book, Add Then Multiply, came out, I started getting invited to speak at events.
Mhm.
And I was speaking at an event 5 years ago, not far from London, and about fundraising for SMEs. And after my talk, a woman came up and asked me why so little funding went to female founders. And I looked at her and I said, I have no idea, but I'll find out. And Deb, what I found out shocked me. I mean, literally the following week, I was in a meeting with the chief executive of the British Business Bank, which is a state-funded bank over here. And she and I had met at a business event, and this was a follow-up meeting to that. And we had a pleasant conversation. And towards the end, I thought, well, I'll ask her if she knows anything. And she kind of smiled and reached down into the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out a bound research report that the bank had been commissioned to prepare. And it looked at all of the venture capital deals in the UK in the year 2017. And they found out that all female teams had submitted about 5% of pitch decks and got 1% of the money. Mixed gender teams had submitted about 20% of the decks and got 10% of the money. And men had submitted 75% of the decks and got 80% of the money.
In a country run by a female monarch.
89% of the money. And this was in 2017 in what is widely considered a progressive liberal country, the UK.
Yeah, like I said, and you were run by a female. Now, granted, the Queen didn't, she didn't sign those little things, but yeah.
True. But yeah, and so I just started. I thought, wow, I'm onto something, and I'm a firm believer that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, kind of thing, and the universe provides. Well, the universe just laid something in front of me and said, "Are you going to pick this up, or are you just going to walk on by?" And I picked it up. And so I've run a number of events. In fact, it'll be our 5th anniversary in November, and we're running a big live event in London. It'll also be streamed online on the 25th of November, because that was the date of our first event in 2019. And I tried to raise a fund over the last couple of years, but with the war in Ukraine and
you started right before COVID.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a tough time, but I still hope to get a fund raised so that I can make investments. Because again, the statistics show it. There was a really good study by Boston Consulting Group that looked at 500 funded companies over a 10-year period. They're not flash in the pan stuff. And they found that companies that had at least one female founder outperformed all male teams. They generated 2.5 times as much revenue per dollar earned, per dollar raised. 2.5 times as much. I mean, that's huge.
Right.
And McKinsey's done studies and banks have done studies showing that, diverse teams outperform all male teams.
Well, yeah, and we've had guests on talking about that, and a big part of it is you just have so much different knowledge when you had diversity. Now I'm not big on forcing diversity because I never want to be the hire that was just because.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we deliberately say, okay, we need to increase our knowledge base. And I mean, that's one of the cool things with technology, right? Now worldwide is
Yes.
our target. No
Yes.
longer does it have to be, the banker down the street. It's the, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And we're up against the clock now. And I'd love to talk to you more about the women funding. So we'll have you back on again because I think that's so
Wonderful.
important.
I
Um,
could easily talk for an hour on that subject
yeah,
alone.
and because I think a big part of it is women don't ask. They don't know how to ask. They don't know who to ask. I mean, all these various things. And so I would love to walk through that with you, because
Wonderful.
I think that would be fascinating. But until then, how do people find you and what are the services that you provide?
Absolutely. So how do people find me? The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn and type in David B as in Bravo or Baker, depending on where you live. So David B. Horne, and you'll
With
get
an
me
E at the end.
with an E at the end, Horne. Yep. Or they can go to my website,
Mhm.
Add Then Multiply, just
Mhm.
like the book, addthenmultiply.com, and there's a contact us form on that. And yeah, those are the best ways.
Mhm.
I'm also on Twitter, David_B_Horne. So it's all very consistent in that regard. That's how people can get in touch. What do I do? I do two things. So I work exclusively with founders of companies. So I don't work with corporates. I tend not to work with early stage startups. They're wonderful places and the people are lovely and they're terrific fun, but they can't afford to pay me.
Right. I was going to say there's just not a lot of
Yeah,
extra cash.
exactly. Exactly. Very selectively, I'll work
Mhm.
with startups, but
Mhm.
really it's got to be
Mhm.
something special. So typically what I do is two things. Number one is from my background as a CFO of a whole
Mhm.
bunch of different companies, I've discovered that a lot of entrepreneurial businesses don't really understand how finance works.
Mhm.
And many entrepreneurs kind of shy away from it.
Mhm.
So basically, we offer a service where we will become your finance team.
Ah.
We will put people into your
Mhm.
company. They will become part of your team, but they work
Mhm.
for us under our guidance
Mhm.
from a finance angle. But the way they behave and
Mhm.
interact with the rest of your staff isn't like, oh, well, we're from the accounting firm and we're doing the accounts. No,
Mhm.
we're part of the team.
Right.
And when there's an issue, we're in there
Mhm.
hands-on with everybody else.
Mhm.
So we do that, and we do that for companies
Mhm.
typically with revenues of at least $1 million.
Mhm.
Um, and then all the way up
Mhm.
to, they may come to a point, it hasn't happened yet, but they may come to a point where they decide, actually, there's now 15 people, we'll just bring it in-house. And I
Mhm.
understand that
Right.
completely. But
Mhm.
until then, so that's the first part. And then
Mhm.
the second part is we work with founders who want to scale up
Mhm.
using the FACE methodology.
Mhm.
So we work with them to develop the strategy
Mhm.
and then go out and raise the capital, find the companies, put them together, and ultimately exit. And we don't have to do all four steps.
Mhm.
Someone can come along and say, well, look, I'm thinking of doing an exit now, or,
Mhm.
or, help, I'm involved in a project and we've bought something and it's
Right.
gone
And
horribly wrong.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And as I said before, the key thing that differentiates us is we are a team of people, myself and a wider team of
Mhm.
people who work inside companies
Mhm.
doing this. This is
Mhm.
what we do. This is what we've done. And most of the people I bring in, I've known for, several years.
Mhm.
I mean, the company's been running for 12 years now.
Mhm.
I've got two members of the team that I've been working with for 7 years, and others that have worked for me in the past, and then our paths have separated.
Mhm.
And then, I've got a project on in
Right.
Germany
And
where
you
I'll
give them
call
a
up Elke
ring.
and she'll
Mhm.
help in,
Mhm.
and things like that. So, yeah.
Great. I love it. Well, this really has been absolutely fascinating. And I do look forward to having you on again because I think it'll be a great discussion. But
Thank
do
you.
you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah. Final thoughts. Yes, running a business is hard work, but it's also tremendous fun. And if you want to take fun and dial it up a level, then look at growing exponentially. It's hard work, but it's an awful lot of fun. And I've been in growing companies and I've been in declining companies, and I'd sure rather spend the rest of my life in growing companies. So if you're interested, give us a call, because growth's a lot of fun and really enjoyable and also quite lucrative.
I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with David B. Horne of Add Then Multiply. Until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.